Every culture tells a story about what is good and what is evil, a story about what we must honor and what we must condemn. But what if that story wasn't handed down by gods, but written by people, with their fears, their power, and their resentment? For thousands of years, humanity has lived inside invisible walls, built by moral codes. We rarely question them. We grow up inside them. They shape our politics, our identities, even the way we love and hate. These codes tell us what is noble and what is shameful. But what if these values were flipped upside down long ago? What if good and evil are not eternal truths, but historical inventions? One man dared to trace the origins of morality, not in heaven, but in the depths of human instincts, power struggles, and resentment. His name was Friedrich Nietzsche, and his discovery was dangerous. In the late 19th century, Nietzsche announced a moral revolution. He claimed that what we call good was born not from strength, but from the cunning of the powerless, that our inherited morality is not divine law, but a story written to control the strong and reward the meek. It was a revelation that shattered the moral comfort of his age, and it continues to echo in ours, in our politics, our culture wars, and our personal struggles with meaning. This is the story of Nietzsche's hidden moral revolution. The story of how one philosopher tried to rewrite the meaning of good and evil, and why his ideas are more relevant now than ever. To understand Nietzsche's revolution, we must first understand the world he was born into, a world of rigid moral orders, unquestioned hierarchies, and inherited beliefs, a world waiting to be unmasked. To grasp Nietzsche's rebellion, we have to step back. Step into a world where morality was not up for debate, where truth came from pulpits, not from questioning minds. Friedrich Nietzsche was born in 1844 in Rücken, a quiet village in Prussia. He grew up the son of a Lutheran pastor. From his earliest days, the rhythms of church bells and biblical verses shaped his world. Mid-19th century Europe was standing on a fault line. On one side, centuries of Christian moral dominance. On the other, a rising wave of scientific discovery, industrialization, and social upheaval. Darwin had shaken creation. Revolutions were shaking monarchies. Yet morality remained rooted in a simple story. Good was humble, obedient, meek. Evil was proud, powerful, defiant. To question this moral framework wasn't just dangerous, it was almost unthinkable, because morality was tied to salvation, law, and social order itself. Nietzsche grew up inside that herd, a gifted child, deeply religious, expected to follow in his father's footsteps. But his father died when Friedrich was only 5, and something shifted. By his teenage years, he began to doubt the faith that had once given his world structure. He devoured the classics, poetry, and philosophy. By the time he entered university, he was already moving away from theology, drawn instead to the power of language, history, and the human will. Europe itself was changing. Modernity was eroding the old moral certainties, but nothing new had fully replaced them. Nietzsche stood at the crossroads, watching a civilization lose its unquestioned story. In this world, morality was inherited, not examined. And Nietzsche would become the thinker who dared to dissect it. But before he could rewrite morality, he had to expose how our values were written in the first place. To understand Nietzsche's revolution, We must first unmask morality itself. He asked a radical question. Where do our values come from? And the answer he uncovered was unsettling. Values are not eternal. They are not universal. They are human inventions. Nietzsche divided morality into two fundamental types: master morality and slave morality. Master morality was the morality of the strong, the noble, the creators of culture. To the masters, good meant strength, power, courage, excellence. Bad meant weakness, cowardice, mediocrity. Slave morality, by contrast, was born from the oppressed, the weak, the powerless. It arose from resentment, what Nietzsche called ressentiment. Unable to exercise power themselves, the weak redefined strength as evil, and humility, obedience, and meekness as good. This inversion created a moral framework that glorified weakness and punished strength, not because of fairness, but because it served the interests of the powerless. Good and evil, in other words, were not eternal truths. They were strategies of survival and control. For Nietzsche, the consequences were enormous. Humanity was living inside a moral story, written not by the strong, not by reality, but by the cleverness of those who had been denied power. He argued that traditional morality was not neutral or natural. It was a calculated response, a system designed to bind the strong with guilt, to redirect their energy into self-denial, and to celebrate the weak as virtuous. But Nietzsche's diagnosis wasn't simply criticism. It was a revelation, an invitation to look at morality not as sacred, but as human, historical, and contestable. To understand how values arise is to reclaim the possibility of creating new ones. Consider this. When society praises mediocrity over excellence, or celebrates obedience over courage, we are witnessing the legacy of slave morality. And it is everywhere, in institutions, in culture, and even within ourselves. The challenge Nietzsche posed is radical. If our morality is inherited, questioned, and inverted, then we must ask ourselves, are we living by values chosen freely, or by the shadow of history's power struggles? Having exposed the source of our values, Nietzsche turned toward a daring proposal, a way to overturn inherited morality itself, a revaluation of all values. Exposing the origins of morality was only the beginning. Nietzsche did not stop at critique. He posed a question more dangerous than any accusation. If the moral codes we inherit are not sacred, then what should we live by? What values deserve our devotion? He called this process the revaluation of all values. To Nietzsche, humanity must stop living under inherited laws, the moral shadows of the weak, and instead actively create values that affirm life, strength, and human excellence. This was not an easy path. It required courage. It demanded a willingness to confront chaos within oneself, to reject comfort, convention, and the moral herd. The chaos Nietzsche speaks of is not destruction for its own sake. It is the raw material of self-creation. It is the inner confrontation with inherited fears, guilt, and outdated ideals. Only by facing it can a person forge values that are truly their own. Central to this revaluation is the will to power, a principle often misunderstood. It is not domination over others, but the creative force within every individual striving to overcome limitation, to assert their own existence, and to shape meaning where none exists. Nietzsche's moral revolution was radical. He asked us to overthrow the inherited values that glorified weakness and to affirm values that celebrate vitality, courage, creativity, and personal responsibility. This is the essence of life affirmation, choosing strength over resentment, growth over comfort, freedom over conformity. Reevaluating values is not easy, and it is not comfortable. It confronts the deepest fears, the fear of loneliness, of judgment, of moral isolation. But Nietzsche believed it is the only path to authenticity. This is where his moral revolution meets modern life. When we stop accepting received ideas blindly, we begin to forge our own code. We choose courage over conformity. We define excellence on our terms, and we step into life fully aware of the consequences of our choices. Nietzsche's critique of morality was not a historical curiosity. It is alive today, in every debate about right and wrong, in every clash of cultural values, in every personal struggle with meaning. The shadow of slave morality lingers. We live in a world flooded with inherited moral codes, ideologies, cultural norms, religious traditions, and social expectations, all telling us what to value, whom to admire, and whom to condemn. And yet, the old certainties have eroded. People feel lost, conflicted, and uncertain. Meaning itself seems fragile. Nietzsche called this experience nihilism, the sense that traditional values no longer hold power, yet no new values have been firmly established. Modern society is living this crisis every day. Moral outrage can rise and fall in a single tweet. Cultural norms can shift overnight, and the pressure to conform still remains, even as the old structures crumble. In such a world, Nietzsche's moral revolution is not abstract philosophy. It is a lifeline. His message is clear. If inherited values no longer suffice, we must create our own. We must become architects of meaning in a world that no longer hands it to us freely. Consider the modern individual facing conflicting ideals, personal ambition versus societal expectation, ethical dilemmas amplified by global connectivity, and the constant pressure to perform morality rather than embody it. Nietzsche's insights illuminate a path forward: self-examination, courage, and conscious value creation. The moral crisis is also personal. We feel guilt, shame, or resentment, not because of divine command, but because we unconsciously carry the values of a society that rewarded weakness and condemned strength. Nietzsche invites us to recognize this inheritance, to question it, and to choose consciously who we want to be. In a world of flux, the call to self-overcoming has never been more urgent. Every individual has the opportunity and responsibility to become a creator of values, to step beyond the inherited codes of the herd, and to live a life truly one's own. This is Nietzsche's challenge to us today. In the face of moral confusion, cultural pressure, and the rise of nihilism, we are called to craft a personal morality, one that affirms life, embraces responsibility, and transforms chaos into purpose. Having unmasked morality and revealed the path for revaluation, Nietzsche turns to the most personal question of all: what should you do with your life? If inherited values are insufficient, if tradition no longer commands respect, the responsibility falls on the individual to become a creator of their own values. This is the essence of self-overcoming, recognizing your inherited limitations, your fears, and your weaknesses, and transforming them into strengths. It is not merely about rebellion, but about conscious growth, sculpting your identity and morality with deliberate intent. Nietzsche presents the figure of the Übermensch, often mistranslated as Superman, not as a superhero, but as a metaphor. for the person who has mastered themselves, who has the courage to define what is good and meaningful, and who lives fully by values they have chosen, not inherited. Self-overcoming demands solitude, introspection, and courage. It asks us to confront the parts of ourselves molded by guilt, fear, and societal pressure. It challenges us to say no to the moral herd and yes to our own capacity to create, to innovate, to affirm life. Nietzsche warns that this path is not easy. It may feel isolating. Society may resist your redefined values. But to live authentically, to forge meaning in a morally ambiguous world, one must risk this tension, embrace it, even welcome it. The challenge is both radical and intimate. Every decision, every action becomes a test. Are you living according to inherited scripts, or are you authoring a life that reflects your highest potential? To embrace Nietzsche's revolution is to reclaim responsibility. It is to act boldly in a world that offers no guarantees, to find meaning not in rules handed down, but in your capacity to shape life itself. This is the ultimate challenge and the ultimate freedom. Friedrich Nietzsche's hidden moral revolution was not an abstract theory. It was a challenge, a call to awaken, to question, to take responsibility for our lives. It asks each of us, are we living by values chosen freely, or by the inherited scripts of history? We have journeyed through the origins of morality, through the tension between the strong and the weak, through the inversion of values, the will to power, and the call to self-overcoming. And now, we arrive at a simple yet profound truth. Nietzsche's revolution continues in every individual willing to confront inherited morality and forge their own path. This moral revolution is alive today, in our choices, our creativity, our courage to question and redefine what is good. Every decision becomes an act of creation, a moment to shape meaning in a world where old values no longer suffice. Nietzsche does not offer comfort. He offers freedom. Freedom to reject the herd, to challenge the moral stories we inherit, and to live deliberately, courageously, and fully. The moral revolution is not complete. It continues in every choice, every act of courage, every moment of self-overcoming. It continues in you. And the question remains, will you take up the challenge? Will you live by your own values, or remain within the shadows of inherited morality? If this journey into Nietzsche's hidden moral revolution resonated with you, subscribe now and turn on the bell notification. Join us as we continue to explore the philosophers who challenge everything we think we know, and help you uncover the truths that shape your mind, your life, and your world.